All right. Hello, everyone. Good day. Greetings, and welcome to today's talk on energy paradigm crossroads, the fourth way for energy infrastructure. Feel free to follow along on the slides presentation as we go through today's talk. First, a table of contents for today. Some definitions will be provided for four new terms. Then we'll go into the 4 points of the talk. That will be truth or energy equity, well-being or energy environment, followed by freedom or energy security, and finally the fourth way for an energy economy. So those four new paradigm concepts introduced to everyone today on the call is first the eco principle, followed by the social sphere, followed by demarchy, and then the autonomic sphere, all of which help to compose the fourth way for energy infrastructure. So our first definition for today is the ECA principle. That's an acronym that stands for Entrepreneurial Community Associationalism. This ECA principle embodies a deliberate commitment to social cooperation as well as community well-being. It is a new human individualism, which I define as social autonomy, enlightened self-interest, and pro-social egoism. Here's a diagram to demonstrate some hierarchical relationships of the ECA principle, followed by part two. Our second definition of the day is going to be the social sphere. And I do have a book recommendation for everyone on the call today, which is Soft Energy Paths Towards a Durable Peace by energy scholar Amory Lovins. He laid out that the soft energy path, is one that is decentralized, one that is highly decentralized, as I said, distributed energy resources, and that being solar panels, energy efficiency products, things of that nature, consist of the soft path, otherwise known as the downwing. And so this social sphere is the sphere of leisure and family life. It is egalitarian and participatory, as well as a world of leisure. Our next definition, part three, is demarchy. As defined by John Bernheim in his book, Is Democracy Possible? Demarchy is a system in which political power is decentralized and decision-making is carried out by community committees drawn by lottery, as in the Athens model. And I illustrate this with an inverted pyramid, a bottom-up system with truth at the base, followed by well-being, freedom, and finally the fourth way. Our fourth and last definition for today is going to be the autonomic sphere. And this autonomic sphere is further illustrated by another book recommendation for today, Technocracy in America. This is going to be what's considered the hard path, which Amory Lovins also details in his book. The hard path is centralized energy production, going back to legacy fossil fuel industry, the centralization of energy production through that, and then carrying on to more advanced nuclear fuels. Centralization is also critical to that energy infrastructure. But as we accelerate the hard path, as we accelerate the autonomic sphere, the AI administration and scientific management of the economy, we will have more space for the soft path, for the social sphere. And as I said, as we accelerate that hard path, we make more room for the social sphere. And as we enter into energy commons, the new paradigm that I'm suggesting to everyone on today's call. That brings us to our first point, which is truth, reconciliation, and justice. We'll be looking at two case studies here. The first will be in Chile, a top-down system of economic juries, followed by a case study in South Africa of bottom-up energy justice. Now, both elements of top-down and bottom-up are at play in these scenarios, but they do illustrate a bit of each of these points. We'll start with South Africa's constitutional law. That is a constitutional law that, through judicial court rulings and jurisprudence has guaranteed the right to energy, the right to reliable electricity supply for the citizens of South Africa. And so this right to energy carries us further into the energy commons paradigm. Furthermore, Chile's proposed constitution, which did not pass in recent referenda, but is still under consideration. Also, there is a provision in that constitution which calls for a right to energy, a right to reliable electricity supply, alongside other basic human rights such as housing, etc., and so on. And so, furthermore, this system of demarchy would be a system of direct technocracy, a merger of direct democracy and rule by experts in their respective economic sector. Furthermore, carrying us on to our second point of the day, which is well-being. And so well-being is that new human individualism that I was speaking of. It's important here to take a look at separating clean energy from both economy and ecology. Now, this point might seem somewhat counterintuitive to all of the green economists out there, perhaps listening on the call, but it's important to transcend the scientific paradigm of the energy crisis and enter into the energy commons. And we do this by exiting the clean versus dirty duality in energy production. And once we consider the ordered versus disordered duality in energy production. As such, the economy is to be organically organized for ordered automation. That's that acceleration of the hard path that I mentioned. And as we do that, we make more space for the social sphere, what will evolve into the care work economy. And that will ultimately look like what's at stake here is energy independence and energy interdependence. What may, in practical application, turn into the internet alongside the IndieNet. So just some further on the horizon items there. But that's the well-being discussion, which we will continue on the next slide here. Well-being being very important for the scalability of self-determination for community well-being. And that's communities on the scale, the global scale, as well as the regional, the locality, and even the individual. And so what's important here is to keep in mind the fourth bottom line, another book recommendation of The Fourth Bottom Line by Paul Hargreaves. That is the priority list of people, planet, purpose before the fourth bottom line of profit. And this carries into this community self-determination of electric utility structure. Here in the U.S. context, we have basically four choices for every community to self-determine on to decide whether they have an IOU, that's an investor-owned utility, a profit-maximizing firm. They can go with a municipal utility, a co-op utility, or a fourth firm, as I like to call it, otherwise known as a sustainability utility. And so it's important to keep in mind that profit maximization, profit absolutism is a wrongful goal for a firm, especially an electric utility company that's providing an essential service, an essential human right to the energy commons paradigm. What's important to focus on in economy is ethical production and consumption, or ethical automation and equanimity, as I've laid out so far. And that brings the well-being point to a close, and moving on to our third point of freedom. And so freedom is further explained in the book Beyond Economics and Ecology by Ivan Illich. You might be asking, freedom from what? In this case, it's freedom from dependence on jobs and joules, as well as wages geared to watts. Joules and watts being measurements of energy, of course. And so what do we replace economics and ecology with? Well, we replace it with ordenomics, social ecology, as well as life-oriented institutions, as displayed in the diagram here on the screen. We bring about life as an important quality that cannot be encapsulated in either economy or ecology. Furthermore, we have the ecocrats, the bureaucrats, and the technocrats proposing the economic goal of low carbon full employment. It sounds very sensible to most of us, but however, counterintuitively, it is a wrongfully organized goal for the economy on the macro as well as the micro scale. Uh, Furthermore, we must address radical monopoly in the electric utility sector. Radical monopoly is to be addressed via public power and energy democracy. In this case, in the case of freedom, as we're discussing, autonomy means increased ordered automation. So, as we once again increase that AI administering of the economy, the scientific management of the economy, the engineering design of the economy, as we accelerate that hard path, we will create more space for the social sphere for all of us to live in the energy commons paradigm. Furthermore, to bring it down to the practicality of it all, we're looking again at community self-determination of electric utility structure. It should be the choice of every community to decide by referenda the structure of their local electric utility. This takes us back in time a bit to history of the 1920s, the progressive era of the United States, followed by the New Deal reforms, the 1930s, culminating in this case in 1935 to the Public Utilities Company Holding Act, otherwise known as PUCA, and then bringing us up to contemporaneous times. Today in 2022, there has been a petition filed with the Federal Trade Commission calling on an investigation into the electric utilities sector. There is a link there in the slide to receive the exact wording of this petition, but this is an ongoing effort to investigate the electric utility sector for monopolistic practices, and is a critical, needful thing to do in this economy and to address the energy crisis paradigm. Furthermore, we bring you to our fourth point of the day, the fourth way for energy infrastructure. And so this is ultimately going to be taking a look at bridge fuels, the pathway from natural gas to advanced nuclear to renewables to other more advanced energy resources, particularly distributed energy resources. If I could just speak briefly on my professional specialty being DER, distributed energy resources, and that includes energy storage batteries, solar panels, energy efficient smart home products, as well as electric vehicles, all integrated in the future in an Internet of Things and an energy infrastructure. That's what we have to look forward to ahead in the future. But bringing on again, learning the lessons from the past. If we want to avoid the energy paradigm crisis, we need to learn the lessons from the past. And what is important to keep in mind would be the 1960s energy optimism. This was a time when many of the scientific planners and engineering professionals dreamt up and planned out the bridge fuel pathway and had a very much a sense of energy optimism, which is what we should be reiterating as we tackle our current energy crisis situation. Furthermore, in the 1970s, the 1960s ran into the 1970s, of course, and then hit an energy crisis, which we learned a lot from. So we want to reiterate and we want to rebuild the lessons from the 1970s energy crisis as we move forward in this paradigm. And so, once again, talking about history just a little bit more briefly, we have the dream of the 1920s and 1930s of several top-down autocrats known as technocrats. They dreamt of a North American technate and ultimately a Eurasian technate, and developed all these engineering plans for a continent-wide energy management system. And so my point for today's talk is that we should revive this dream, but dream differently in its implementation for energy security. Energy security being the prime objective here in this slide, of course, and throughout this talk. To achieve this energy security, we'll take a look at 6 steps. First, number 1, we work on harmonizing the North American energy industry, that being Canada, US, and Mexico, with grid modernization and integration. Number 2, then we construct a grid interconnection between Eurasia and North America via cable laid across the Bering Strait. That will result in step 3, which will be a tripolar global north consisting of North America, a Eurasian EU, and bringing in China or the Sinosphere. That resultant step 3 will result as well in step 4, being a tripolar global south, South America, African Union, as well as India and the Indosphere. Finally, our 5th step here, the peacemakers, a critical step in the development of the energy infrastructure pathway to peace. We bring in the peacemakers of the Middle East and what I refer to as the Middle West or Central America. All these premises, they line up with Ivan Illich's book, The Tools for Conviviality, which is essentially the point that technology is upstream from culture, which is also upstream from politics, and is ultimately upstream from peace. And this is the pathway to peace through energy infrastructure. The ultimate lesson here that our tools should be implements for peace. They should be implements for bringing together a global community with peace in mind. And now to bring it home a little bit, to bring it down to the individual level, what can we do as individuals? To all those listening on the call today, you might be asking, how can I help? How can I contribute to this global community peace through energy infrastructure? Well, I am calling on everyone to think of themselves as the administrator tinkerer. On the slide here, that will be the sun, the star. It's in the middle there of the 4 archetypes that I will illustrate furthermore. The 4 archetypes that we should think of ourselves, cast ourselves as professionals in the energy sector. But first, I have to do another brief history lesson dealing with historical energetics, or the scientific history of the concept of energy itself. Going back to the mid 1800s, around 1846, I believe, there were several scientists, engineers, types that designated a definition for energy, all working independently of each other. In the mid 1800s, they defined energy as nature's ability to perform work. These scientists consist of people like Kelvin, Helmholtz, von Meyer, several other scientists and whatnot. But as I said, they defined energy as nature's ability to perform work. And this ultimately cast the social human being as a worker. That's the overall operating metaphor of human as worker, and it ultimately casts the entire planet as a machine, as the universe, as a machine type paradigm, as a worker type paradigm, as a clockwork sort of universe. This going back to the scientific revolution, of course, throughout history, and we still have this legacy metaphor that continues on in life. But I'm saying that as we continue the work, as we continue the 4th way, we will recast the human, we will reimagine what it means to be human with new human individualism, and cast the human as co-creative, co-entrepreneur, rather than as strictly as a worker. And so when we think of the human as, each of us individually as co-creative, co-entrepreneur, we do have 4 archetypes that are at play, 4 archetypes for the co-entrepreneur to navigate. That would be the co-engineer, the co-agent, the co-physician, and the co-actor. And now bringing us to a call to action for the day, I do call on everyone to pursue the Energy 4th Way, to be the star, be the administrator tinkerer, be the co-creative co-entrepreneur, and ultimately set up worker-owned firms with the 4th bottom line. Now, the 4th bottom line does correspond, again, to those 4 archetypes. The co-engineer is purpose, the co-physician is planet, the co-actor is people, and the co-agent is profit. As co-actors, myself and everyone included, we should advocate for community self-determination of energy utility infrastructure via referenda. Particularly in the U.S. context here, I'm calling for federal PUCA reform in the United States. That's the Public Utilities Company Holding Act, of course. Furthermore, I'm also on a skill search for a co-engineer to draft computer code for a smart thermostat device. So please do contact me if you're interested in collaborating and sharing your skills on a project I'm working on to bring about further distributed energy resources. Finally, I do ask everyone in the United States, at least, to take a look at enrolling in Common Energy, my employer, and this will bring about economic benefit for co-agents. And once again, this is retail electricity supply sourced to community solar pastures, tended for co-physicians, to bring about again the full circle of each of these four archetypes that we consider ourselves as co-entrepreneurs. And finally, there is a link at the bottom that you can go to my professional link to Common Energy to enroll in retail electricity supply sourced to community solar farms. Once again, be the star, navigate the four archetypes, follow the fourth way, and we will be led into an energy paradigm of an energy commons. To sum up the call today, the talk, simply, we talked about the fact that we are at an energy paradigm crossroads, and this consists of energy equity, energy environment, energy security, and finally, the fourth way for energy economy. So thank you for your time today, and please do ask any questions you may have. How can we contribute together? How can we work together and co-entrepreneur this new energy paradigm? Thank you very much, and please do ask any questions you might have.